Lessons are being learned about campus protests. DU says its protesters can stay if they follow the rules, while Auraria campus leaders try to explain the misinformation they put out. It's not just new immigration claims being held up in court. People given permission to stay in Colorado for years are running into new problems.
It puts people at a continuous risk of deportation.
A controversial school leader is now trying to lead a boycott of a new school district. And we remember a journalist who was a constant presence in our televisions for decades. A member of our team called him Dad. That's tonight on Next. The pioneers are followers when it comes to pro-Palestinian protests. Weeks after Denver saw its first camp pop up on the Auraria campus, the DU campus now has one. And campus leaders there seem to be learning from Auraria's failed attempt to clear their encampment. About 50 protesters set up tents at the University of Denver around 11 this morning. Pro-Israel counter-protesters arrived soon after. Like at Auraria, the pro-Palestinian protesters say that they will stay on campus until DU completely divests from Israel. DU leaders say the protesters are welcome to stay on the green as long as students follow the honor code. DU is making clear that outsiders, people who are not part of the DU community, are not welcome to stay on their property, and the school may try to remove them. Denver police tell us that DU has not asked for help at this point. As we've reported, DPD was frustrated with Auraria campus leaders for allowing a protest camp to reform and set back up just hours after DPD had participated in a sweep last week. Denver police have said they won't do another sweep at Auraria and presumably DU unless there's some kind of escalation. For the first time today, Auraria campus leaders are answering questions about the misinformation they put out earlier this week. Misinformation that had the real possibility to escalate the situation on that campus. MSU Denver's president falsely claimed that protesters had zip-tied the doors to the student union. That wasn't protesters, it was law enforcement. Today, our Evan Krugel got a chance to try and get a straight answer on how something so provocative and so wrong got put in a letter from the university president.
It's a great question, Kyle. Today's briefing was brief and virtual. Reporters were only able to ask questions in the chat, which campus leaders then sorted through, picking which questions they wanted to answer. They did discuss what led to that zip tie situation on Tuesday. Auraria campus police say they had to place the Tivoli Student Union into a lockdown because protesters were inside. MSU President Janine Davidson blasted a message online saying protesters had entered Tivoli Hall and zip-tied the doors shut to lock them. The campus later admitted it was their own police force that tied the doors shut, and today they finally explained why.
In this particular situation, there were two doors that would not lock, and so they were zip-tied or handcuffed. But there were officers stationed right near those doors, and right next to those doors was another set of doors where people were being let out into the outside of the student union. So again, protesters could not come into the building, and other people were not being allowed into the building, but people would be escorted out and let out of the building just so that our officers could make sure that the building was safe and secure.
Now, we did ask what steps the president's office was taking to ensure it did not share false information again. They did not answer that question. They did discuss some other topics. The campus says it's had to bring in hazmat crews, as you see here, to clear out some of the human waste protesters have been leaving in and near the quad.
Waste on and around the quad has been observed as a result of poorly maintained temporary bathroom facilities that the protesters have illegally placed on the quad. We've received complaints from parents and students to campus administrators with pictures of feces near and around their vehicles parked near the quad.
Now, Auraria says 14 people have been cited for entering buildings on Tuesday. The campus says they've also been dealing with instances of vandalism and students not being able to make it to class for finals. Kyle?
We'll keep watching it day by day. Evan Krugel, thank you. Asylum changes just announced by the Biden administration are likely to have more of an impact on migrants arriving at the border than those who are already in Colorado. The new rules would allow an officer at the border to deny a migrant's asylum claim after an initial interview if they believe that the migrant has a serious criminal history or poses a quote-unquote security risk. This is expected to apply in a relatively small number of cases. Honestly, the biggest impact for migrants here in Colorado is that the changes are intended to relieve delays in the court system that has a backlog of thousands of cases. Slowdowns around immigration status extend beyond migrants to DACA recipients who already have permission to stay and work here, but now they're running into roadblocks when they try to renew their documents. Our Angeline McCall spoke to a so-called dreamer impacted by those delays.
For people with DACA status, life in the United States often feels like a ticking clock.
Yeah, definitely.
Blanca Silva had spent the last 7 months waiting.
It's always at a limbo.
Every 2 years, DACA recipients have to renew their status and their work permit. In the past, the process has taken roughly 3 months.
I was worrying too because it was taking so long. So it had taken much more time than any other time I had applied.
It took Blanca 7 months this time.
I was basically back into being undocumented.
Her DACA wasn't renewed until earlier this week. She applied for renewal in October.
I had to stay at a standstill and in a way also go back into the shadows and not really put myself at the forefront of getting in trouble or anything like that.
These delays make it really hard for people to plan their lives. People might lose their employment if their DACA expires before they can get renewed.
Raquel Lane Arellano with the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition says while they help DACA recipients with applications, there's not much they can do to speed up the process through the federal government.
We're seeing that this creates a really big mental burden on DACA recipients because they don't know if they're going to be able to be here to be with their families. It puts people at a continuous risk of deportation.
The process made her feel like she only has so much time on her clock.
I still don't have that security.
But for now, she has the next 2 years of reassurance until the next application.
I always say it's like a subscription to being here in the United States or being able to work here in the United States that you have to renew every 2 years. And that you're never confident that you will receive it again.
The agency that processes these renewals, USCIS, have said as far back as 2022 that they've had immense staffing shortages that have led to a backlog in pending cases. Right now, the agency is also prioritizing TPS applications, which some advocates wonder may be pushing DACA applications even further down the list.
Everything's kind of coming to a funnel point. All right, Angeline, thank you very much. Democrats at the state capitol are taking a victory lap in a race that they could not lose. They, of course, hold both sides of the legislature and the governor's office. What Democrats could agree on, they got. Today, the governor broke out one of those big boards listing all their wins. Politics guy Marshall Salinger adds some fine print that they probably prefer we didn't mention.
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
It would not be a news conference with Democratic Governor Jared Polis without visual aids. The ones on display today highlight wins from the legislative session. On Monday, it was this one, cutting property taxes, that was not fully accurate. If you watch next, you know even with a property tax compromise at the legislature, your future property tax bills will still go up, just not as much as if lawmakers did nothing. Today, the top of the visual aid read, "More housing now." But listen to Polis's answer when he was asked about housing legislation passed this year.
This is not the type of thing where you sign the bill and the next week you have, more buses and more housing. But it takes the development cycle, which means not forever. It means it takes a few years, right?
Which led me to ask if the visual aids are purposefully not written with the full story.
You and Kyle do a great job telling people the deeper analysis. We certainly have deeper analysis of each of these, but we're obviously going to put a good thing to say up there. More housing now, and the reason that we use that slogan. I've used that slogan for several things. Preschool now and kindergarten now and housing, that sounds better than, preschool in 3 years or kindergarten in a year or housing in 2 years. So, of course, we want to highlight the urgency of the need and the urgency of the solutions.
His third bullet point says fully fund schools. Yes, this is the first year in more than a decade that the state is providing the full amount of money it's supposed to without holding any back. But a rally by school groups earlier this year used a Taylor Swift theme to poke fun that fully funded essentially means schools are now funded as though it were 1989.
This is a reference to ending the budget stabilization factor, the money that was owed to schools, funding schools at the level that was promised to the voters in Amendment 23. And also a plan to maintain that commitment over time. Whether or not it's enough funding for our schools, separate discussion, of course.
For Next, I'm Marshall Zellinger.
Video games are more than just Fortnite and Call of Duty, that they can tell meaningful, impactful stories.
They're not avoiding their homework from this class because gaming is the homework. Students crafting stories they want to see. And we remember a Denver TV legend, Rick Salinger, a life dedicated to his community and his family. Former Denver School Board member Aon Anderson is now causing controversy in a new school district. He's trying to start a boycott of Inglewood schools. Anderson is running a brand new nonprofit that's put out a ranking system based on how well they say that schools treat black students. The Green Book initiative says it evaluates schools based on criteria like curriculum and, quote, treatment and involvement of black school board members. Only a few schools are currently ranked, Englewood the only one given the lowest possible ranking. The district argues that the Green Book's rubric is unsound and that the district hasn't been given any justification to back up this horrendous score. Anderson says the score is at least partially based on the district's treatment of the board's only black member, Devon Williams. His candidacy made news last year because Williams was wanted by police on a car theft warrant while running for office. He is currently upset with his fellow board members because they won't pay him $140 in mileage reimbursements that the board insists were not approved ahead of time. Anderson told the Inglewood School Board to pay the $140. And now he says families of color should pull their kids out of Inglewood schools. This week, Anderson claimed that he's convinced more than 80 families to leave the district, and he's just getting started with this effort. The threat to the district's bottom line was not subtle if Inglewood Schools doesn't meet Anderson's new grading system.
We are looking forward to supporting you to get out of that status and to change directions, because we know that this district cannot sustain more students leaving because it will lead to larger budgetary impacts.
Inglewood Schools disputed Anderson's claim that there's a mass exodus from the district. They said only 2 students have withdrawn in recent weeks, and neither enrolled in a neighboring district. We reached out to Anderson's new initiative with some questions about what they're doing. His partner in the initiative said they would not answer questions unless they came from a black journalist who would agree to their preconditions.
Right now, a live look over downtown Denver. Gloomy but still dry here. 53 degrees at DIA. Light winds coming in from the north at around 9 miles per hour. Other areas across the Front Range have been seeing those rain and snow showers, and that's due to this larger system here. The northern half of the state only seeing those light snow showers up in the high country and foothills. The southern half of the state, though, is where we are seeing the heavier snow and rain showers across southern portions of the Front Range and high country. Because of this, we do have winter weather advisories in effect right now through noon tomorrow. Most of the central portions of the high country could see maybe up to a foot of new snow, smaller totals across higher elevations to the south. Overnight tonight will be pretty mild, 30s and 40s across the Front Range and Eastern Plains, 20s and 30s in the high country. And then tomorrow afternoon, temperatures rise to the upper 50s across the Front Range, 60s off to the east, 40s and 50s up in the mountains. So we'll still be below average for our Friday with highs peaking in the upper 50s. We're going to watch for those widespread rain showers, not a big complete washout, but just some spotty rain showers all across the Front Range and Eastern Plains. Snow showers to the west become lighter throughout the day Friday. Saturday and Sunday, we start both of these days with some sunshine, temperatures in the upper 60s. We're going to watch for those afternoon and evening storms to creep in and linger through most of the week.
Rick Salinger died last night. He spent more than 30 years as a journalist on television in Denver, first here at 9 News, then decades at CBS 4. Rick leaves a legacy in thousands of stories carefully reported, and in his son Mark, a reporter on this program.
It was nice, but there was something much more important to this campaign taking place elsewhere.
For a generation, if it happened in Colorado, Rick Salinger covered it.
Governor Lamb told us he, too, will be campaigning there for Hart.
He was tenacious, relentless.
Rick Salinger has been corresponding with Hinckley over the past 2 years.
Yet respectful and fair.
Accepting the Peabody Award today, investigative reporter Rick Salinger.
Rick Salinger's work won awards, sure, clear up to the Peabody, the business's highest honor, but his work also won the respect of Coloradans, reassured by his presence in the most difficult times.
Friends and family members traveled here to join others.
Rick Salinger loved Colorado so much, he left and came back.
This is World News with Rick Salinger in London.
He covered the first Gulf War with CNN, Somalia being torn apart, Germany coming back together, and then he returned to put down roots in Colorado. with the first great love of his life, journalism, and the second, his family.
In the headlines, a good dinner at the Salinger house.
A good dinner at the house, in the Salinger house.
He loved his boys, Mark and Eric, and his wife Isabel beyond measure. To spend even a minute with Rick meant you'd be hearing about his family. Eric in medical school, Mark in the family business, competing against his dad and reporting on his dad's recent retirement. One generation to another.
I've never known Denver TV without Rick Salinger, without you, Dad. Quite literally, as long as I have been alive, you have been on TV every day.
Good evening. Did you push it?
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Salinger, and this is Eric Salinger with the news. In the headline, until one of the retiring commissioners can be replaced. Rick Salinger, 9 News. Thank you and good night.
Let students explore their passions, and learning just happens naturally. Like the kids making their own video games, choosing the stories they want to see on screen. A preview tonight of the Denver Center for International Studies Video Game Showcase.
Being a game creator is not something that's unattainable. At DCIS, we've partnered with the school to bring in a video game creation class.
We're basically like a game studio.
My name is Matt Slater. I'm the Director of Education at Pop Culture Classroom. We're all about engaging students through pop culture. So we believe that through the method of video games, we can teach things like literacy, like critical thinking, project management skills.
It's kind of shaping your own universe.
And how to work with technology.
So they're learning what a narrative video game is, the types of stories that we can tell with video games, and how we tell those stories.
Like for example, our game is the message is to never give up.
Our video game is called From the Shadows. The whole premise is that you are stuck in your own nightmare with each level as fear that you're trying to conquer.
Our game is based in Miyazaki, Japan. In my culture, there's spirits. They may be bad spirits or good spirits. Sometimes bad spirits can attach themselves to you.
And so by creating their own games, they are learning how to create art, how to create the assets, the trees, the characters. They're learning how to tell a story through interactive media. And then of course, they're also learning the programming parts of it, how to make what they want happen, how to make their characters behave the way they want, how to make enemies or the environment behave the way they want, how to make the sounds that they want in the games.
Knowing how those things work is a really good skill to have.
We're back here with your feedback about the life and legacy of Rick Salinger. Next. A next viewer, Chuck, writes in to say Rick Salinger was part of a generation, rock solid, accurate, professional, and just plain easy to listen to. NBC's Tom Costello said today, he was a good friend, but also a fierce competitor who was always accurate. I am privileged to have learned from him. Ernie Bjorkman, who worked a long time in Denver News, wrote, whenever I saw Rick at the same story, it made me work that much harder because he undoubtedly always got the scoop. Mark and Eric and Isabel, all of our thoughts, Colorado's thoughts, are with you and your family. See you next time.